Good morning and welcome to the 8 at 8. Just about now 29 minutes until 9 o'clock. Jesse, the African Sun, Juliana, and now we have Nasser who is joining us in the studios. Nasser is just straight from the swimming pool this morning. How are you doing, Nasser?
Snitches get stitches. Good morning.
Who does that? Who wakes up to swim? But I must say, it's a nice thing.
2 kilometers.
You have to become a hard guy. At least there's some people out there who can relate. Like, it's good to be in a room and like everyone in that room is not as dangerous as you are. Like,
so do you feel you're more dangerous than us?
No, I mean, like, you should always try to strike. You know, the one of those authors who was talking about, he's actually one of the only authors we have that's great, that's still alive, a guy called Byung-Chul Han, right? So he was talking about success and all these things that we have in our generation of motivational speakers and what. And he's like, but those guys are not the most dangerous people. The most dangerous people are not out there making videos.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
So you're not
The
just
other are
freaking-
swimming for 2 kilometers every morning.
He's not the most dangerous one, don't worry.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm just
It's just living healthy, which is really good.
yes, and eating greens, all the stuff people don't like,
I
drinking
want to be your
detox things
friend.
on a Monday.
I really want to be your friend. Maybe you will actually you'll motivate me to do these things.
I actually had an analogy that people with abs, you know, the guys with the six packs and stuff,
Yeah.
they are very unhappy.
Like Jesse's.
They are very, very unhappy.
He told me this morning he has six
Those
pack.
people are very, very unhappy. Yeah, because they watch what they eat, they do a lot of exercises, they're always checking themselves in the mirror. The rest of us, if you have a little bit of fupa, you're cool.
But you're cool, yeah, you're cool. Don't worry. You're not body shaming anyone today. No.
It's just consolation, so never mind here.
Clearly, yes. It's consolation.
Nasser is here this morning to speak about failure. Not a
Yep.
good subject from Monday, but it's one you want to confront at least early enough in the week. And also because we are in the election season, and we have the elections coming up on the 15th and the 16th, right?
Yeah.
Which is going to be on Monday and Tuesday. Looking forward to another public holiday.
Is it a public holiday?
It doesn't
though?
make a difference for you.
I don't know if it's a
voting
public
day,
holiday,
Voting day is not a public holiday?
I don't
should
think
be.
so.
It should
I
be
don't
for
think
to
so.
give people
It
an
should
opportunity
be-
to go
then
voting.
Let's say I work in transport. Who's going to transport people to go and vote?
That's not a public holiday for a transporter. It's an opportunity.
Just the way it's not a public a public holiday for the media people.
Oh, so it's the utilities that get to work that day.
Whichever you call it. So we have 3 presidential candidates. We have parliamentary seats being contested for. We have women in seats, youth representatives, and all of that. And what this means, there will be winners and there will be losers. There will be failures as well. So the better for us to start talking about failure today and how you can fail forward, just in case you fail.
Well, it's good you bring it up. I think today I'm trying to make the distinction. We are on a tangent, right? And me defining failure for people is not the idea of the day, because that one everyone knows what failure is, because it's like a sibling we live with in our house. And for those of you who have never failed, eventually you will. Like, all of us will.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's just that everyone knows failure, but it's very hard to accept failing.
Yes. So today I'm on a tangent to describe how we look at the difference between failure and fault. People usually handle failure like fault, yet it's not the same thing. We've grown up in an environment which is success culture, you know. So ask yourself the question, what would you attempt to achieve if you could fail without fear?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, like, imagine like a world where you could fail without fear. What would you attempt to achieve? Like, if you knew there's some things I've never tried out because I know I'll fail because I'm not good at those, because maybe I see they're quite complicated the way people do them, or maybe because I need to train hard for those kind of things. But would you just dive in and trust the process and say, I can jump in because I'm not afraid, you know? learn from it or something like that. And by the way, hold your horses, all of you. Today is not a day for all those people out there who are always at fault and they're making excuses and they're saying, I need to make mistakes and then find out. Now that's a different thing. I'll describe the two scenarios. So people are always faulting the system and saying, yeah, failure is good for success. When I fail enough times, I'll learn. That's not failing, that's fault.
They actually also say for leadership that good leaders give room for people to make mistakes, to fail, to be at fault, and then learn from it.
No, not to be at fault, to fail, but not to be at fault. I'll give you the difference here. So failure is a situation where you do not achieve the outcome you've been looking for in a situation. That is failure. There are so many factors in there. I'll give you a quick example. If you're working at this organization and then you guys try to introduce a new system of communication or a new system of working, and then at some point it does not achieve the desired effect of what you guys wanted, you're basically considered your system failed. You're a failure. Basically, you failed to achieve what it is you wanted to achieve with this system, but you're not at fault because you did everything that you were supposed to do to introduce the system. It just wasn't the right environment, or maybe there are other success factors and whatnot. But then fault is a different thing. Fault is, I'm going to use the same tangent, which is a company, right? Imagine you work at a company and you're running a project and you're supposed to use a certain project management system and you do not use it. You're just stubborn. You're like, I'm not going to use it. And then the project fails. There, you're not a failure. You're at fault.
So fault is something done intentionally.
Yes, fault, it's intentionally. Like you did not do everything you were supposed to do for the thing to work out. Failure is different on the other hand. Failure, you did not achieve the desired outcome, regardless of whether you put in all the work and did everything the way you're supposed to do it.
It simply didn't work out.
Yes, it simply didn't work out. There are so many external factors. That is why I'm giving you the different definitions here, because if you're in leadership or if you're in an environment like corporate culture and any of that stuff, you might want to know the difference between the two. And if it's failure, then you start addressing the areas where you dissect the entire thing. And you might actually find out that this person, all these people who are in this system, did not actually fault it. It actually failed because maybe it's not the right match, maybe it's not the right environment, maybe it's not the right time. There's so many factors in there. And whatever you discover in this case, if you run the same experiment again, you might actually succeed, which is different from fault. When you're faulting something, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you'll never succeed, ever.
Let's
Because
try
you're
to put the
taking out
English
something.
right. Where is the room for mistake here? I'm hearing fault and failure, and then you're saying fault is deliberate. So where are the mistakes made?
So the mistakes are made in both cases, but in fault, you're actually knowingly doing the stuff. Knowingly. You're making... It's as simple as you've parked your car. There's an instruction there that says, pull this lever. It's the handbrake. If you don't pull this lever, the car is going to slip and knock the wall. And you say, nah, let's see what happens. And then you knock. The insurance company is not going to sort you out. Trust me. But failure is when I pulled the lever, I put in the handbrake, I put everything the way it's supposed to be. Maybe the handbrake was faulty and then the car still slipped and knocked. If they go and do a mechanical assessment and find out you did everything right, it's just the car that's faulty. The insurance company will cover you. Both made the mistake. One did it knowingly.
So failure is something that you've done your whole heart. You've put in your whole energy, that you've put in
Then
all the
doesn't
science.
work out.
It simply doesn't work out.
Failure is the outcome. For failure, it's not you. No one works towards failure.
No one.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for you, you hope. It's like in business. And entrepreneurs invest because they expect a profit, and then eventually maybe it's a loss or maybe the business doesn't work out. But if you dissect and assess this guy's business entirely and look at all the factors, you might actually find this guy is getting more investors, even though the first time it failed, because he'll tell you, I have now learned the different corners we need to fix and iron out the kinks. That's failure, right? Failure is what you learn from. You do not learn from fault. Fault is simply you trying to be stubborn.
So a guy who has failed on the seventh relationship, is there a way we can say they've been at fault because it was them that led to the failures?
Yes, because this guy 7 times, you're not adjusting your, what do they call them? Parameters. Like, what have you learned? The first one, the second one, the third one. Even Muslims will tell you can take up to 4. They don't say take 4 at the same time, but you can take up to 4. You have 4 SIM card slots, right? So you've consumed your first SIM card slot. What have you learned from that one? You've put in the second one. What have you learned from that one? You're going to the third one, then the fourth one. The seventh, really?
You probably haven't discovered your problem.
You don't adjust, like you're the common denominator, because 7 times you would have already, I mean, once is the charm, twice is the charm, you already know.
No, but there are scenarios where somebody says, okay, the second one was my fault, but the 7th, it is total failure.
You've heard of that statement. They say, fool me once. You've heard of it, right? Fool me twice. You get what I mean? Fool me once, you're to blame. Fool me twice, I am to blame. It's my fault. Like the first time, I didn't see it coming. The second time, really? So I think to deep dive into today's conversation, we're not here to define failure, because a lot of us live with it like a sibling, but we're ashamed of it. So today we are going to talk about how failure can be something actually very interesting in your life, can help you go forward, the so-called fail forward. I also don't like that in corporate culture, people use these words interchangeably and they throw words around, fail forward. So in every scenario you're there and they're talking about fail forward, don't be the fail forward guy in every meeting.
Like it's a
to
good
be honest,
thing.
yeah, your fault. Like you fail forward in the first meeting of the maybe quarterly report. Then next quarter, you're still the same guy in the fail forward section. I'm going to have to call you out. I'm going to be like, yo. No. Usually it's you failed and then you adjusted. And even when the way you describe the content in a fail forward section, it's not describing the place where you failed. You don't spend so much time on that. You introduce the part, then you talk about how you failed, but then you quickly spend 70% of the time describing the areas of learning. You're like, guys, from today onwards, know this. Always pull the lever. You have to have recommendations there, because it's not a fail forward if you don't have any forward. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yes, you are.
So I think the first step of how you can start personal growth from failure. I know most of you out here are afraid of and ashamed of talking about your failures. Also, by the way, guys, there's no failure on social media. You know, on YouTube, there's a channel called Epic Fails. You know those guys who are awesome that make very nice YouTube videos? They have a channel for how they failed, how they face planted as many times as possible until they did it. Yes. So on social media, there's no fail. So everyone on social media is perfect. Everyone on social media is in the Maldives and they're having a blast and all that.
Which is a lie, actually.
Yeah, until you talk to their families and they tell you they're estranged.
What would you be?
They are stressed.
What would you be talking
They're
to their
actually
families?
depressed.
No, I mean, Chigali is small. We know each other. We're all friends, right?
Yeah.
And we share.
Kigali is everyone knows everyone.
And we share, like, you
share?
you go in AA meetings, and you're like, yeah, let's all share. We share
I was
around the
just getting a
circle.
different thing of sharing.
No,
but
not that.
yeah.
Not that kind. That too, but no, not that sharing.
Okay, Nasser, in the interest of knowing, failing forward, I know it's been overused many times, but could you just try to explain what it means to fail forward and how it differs from simply failing?
Failure. Okay. A lot of people have been through failure and it has defeated them. And then others, by default, as human beings, we are not designed to fail. So we always fight back whenever we fail. Look at a toddler. When the toddler is trying to walk and they fall, they don't think about it as failure. They just keep trying. They keep going and keep going.
Like
now,
it's a process.
Yes. Now, as you grow old and you interact with this external environment, you'll meet a lot of people who treat failure like fault, and they'll not give you that room or that environment to keep trying. So they'll just, fault you for everything. And you get into that kind of trap. So that's the trap we're trying to unlock here. So I think the first step is to redefine failure. First we must change our perception of failure significantly if we are raised to avoid it or have some perfectionist tendencies. It is now up to us to keep risking failure. I think I'll give some reading resources later, but there's a book called Failing Forward, Turning Mistakes into Stepping Stones for Success by John C. Maxwell, and in there he defines the concept of failing forward and states that the difference between the average people and achieving people is the perception of and their response to failure. So the perception and response is the key word, because we are all going to fail, but your perception and response to failure is where you're going to get some sort of issues. Like the guy you talked about, the 7 relationships guy, he's persistent. So he would have been...
He wants the 8th.
No, he would have been an achieving guy. But clearly the guy is 7 relationships in. You don't need 7 relationships to be an achieving guy. You only need one that lasts longer, right? So this person, yes, he's persistent. That's the one good thing. But the one bad thing he or she has is their response to failure. They just keep going at it the same way over and over again. It's like hitting your head on the wall. They should have adjusted and recalibrated. Maybe they would have stopped at the 4th and it would have lasted.
I also think they're not learning from their mistakes.
Yes.
An average person would be in intimate relationships about how many before they are 50?
I don't think that there's a particular number. Is it there?
But it could be on average.
On average of
Intimate relationships.
number you can go through until you...
About 50 years.
It's not like a guarantee.
I don't think there's a number.
I don't think there's a particular number.
I mean, there are people by the time they reach their 30s, they've gone through like 50 relationships. They have that
Jesus.
mileage, you know.
The body count is crazy.
Okay, body count is another thing, but me, I'm talking about mileage. But yeah, so going back to this conversation, to improve your relationship with failure, you must treat it like any other relationship, like those 7 relationships you had, with time and attention. You have to be intentional about your relationship with failure. You must pay attention always. Whenever you fail, you must always ask yourself, is it me who caused this outcome? Did I miss anything, or the external sources? So you need to calibrate, and whatever you find, you must accept it. I think one of the biggest problems is something we've been talking about weeks in, months in, is the self-awareness. Most people are not willing to accept that they are the cause of any sort of downside. It's because you will talk about it in detail. If you spend time getting more comfortable with failure and intentionally clarify its role in your life, you start to view it as a natural, necessary step in your way to success. And it's not something you start fearing. Now you can, now I think the next step would be now to face it and embrace it. So you must often embrace failure. Whenever you fail, your gut reaction is to pretend that it never happened. You downplay the situation. I've seen guys in the gym trying to jump that 2-meter box thing, and then the crash is walking through, and then the guy fails to meet the 2-meter distance in jumping, and then he lands straight on the floor, and then he changes his subscription. He just moves to another gym. That's a person who has not embraced.
He didn't understand. He didn't actually accept and understand why he failed to jump that.
Yeah.
Was it higher?
People fall every time when they're jumping that thing. It's okay. It's all good.
Let me ask a personal question, Nasser. What's your personal relationship with failure? When you fail, what's normally your response?
I think growing up, I was in an environment where my parents are the type that did not have room for failure. I think most of us who come from that time, we know. So there was no room for that. You try your best in class, and we even came from schools where they had a British system where they used to grade us. Let's say you're 200 students in a class, they would say you're 199 out of 200, and your parents are like, look at you. Look at you. So it was that kind of environment.
There was no room for failure.
Yes. Yeah. And as I went, I'm actually one of those people who I'm thankful because I got a chance to see both sides of the coin. As I grew older and went to schools that are from a different continent and different settings, I started understanding that there's no correct or wrong answer. I always grew up looking for the correct answer. I was always sure that you must be sure that this is the correct answer. And then I moved to a system where they were telling you the way you understand the phenomenon or the formulas and all these things, you're not going to get one answer. The answer doesn't matter. Just keep calibrating and understand the formula. So if you feed it a different parameter, you're going to get a different answer. So 3 or 4 or 5 answers. I started understanding failure differently. I realized that, okay, I was being faulted, but I was actually right sometimes.
Okay.
It's Kigali in the morning, the 10 minutes until 9 o'clock. We have Nasser with us in the studios. We're speaking about failure. Should be back after these messages. We're back at it, the conversation here. Kigali in the morning. It's about 8 minutes until 9 o'clock. It's Jesse and Juliana. We have Nasser with us in the studios. Nasser, from your notes, I gather that John Maxwell writes a book and he mentions fail early, fail often, but always fail forward.
Yeah.
Is this statement asking us to look for failure and opportunities to fail?
No, it's just telling us not to fear to fail, and also telling us how we should respond when we fail, because I know a lot of people have been defeated by failure. There are those people who don't fail forward. When they fail, they give up. They're two different things. They're like, I'm done with that. I'm not doing that again. I have stopped. I've given up. And in return, those ones are the ones who don't fail forward. I mean, yeah, and it all comes from the current environment we live in. We need to start canceling the culture of success. You know, this toxic positivity that we have these days. You can do this. I keep saying this stuff on radio every day.
Yeah, you can
Guys
do
go
this.
to the mirror and psych themselves that they can do stuff. You can't. You need to train for stuff. You need to put in the effort. You need to be intentional. You need to know that also there are people out there who are way better at you than doing that stuff because they've been doing it for years. And now, if you have a conversation with these guys, they'll show you the areas in which you're going to fail, and then you'll be prepared. You know you're going to fail because you're only going to get better if you fail at it.
So just Nasser, what do you mean when you say fail forward?
So fail forward is failure is a given. Like no one, even the ones listening to us, no one out there is going to run away from failure. You cannot hide from it. You cannot run from it. It's going
guaranteed.
to find you. You know, even when you say, I'll give you a quick example. You guys spoke about a swimming pool. Let's say you don't know how to swim and you want to take swimming lessons, right? And then you think about it and you go into the water for the first time and you fail to do the breathing thing, right? And then you say, you know what? If I don't go back there ever, I'll not fail at swimming. Do you know what you've failed? You've failed generally to take on a new skill. You may not have failed at swimming because you're not in the pool anymore and you're not going for those lessons, but you've failed completely to take on a new skill. And you'll never take on that skill ever. Like, that's it, you're done. And that's not failing forward. Failing forward is when you go in there, you're like, okay, yesterday it wasn't very nice. I need to now find ways. Let me go do those YouTube videos on how to do the breathing thing because yesterday I failed so badly at doing it. Then today you try it again, you fail again. You're like, okay, I think I'm doing it wrong. Tomorrow I'll ask, maybe I'll talk to a coach. On the third day, you start getting it right. On the fourth day, you're like, okay, I'm not following the instructions anymore because in the instructions they said, do 3 times, then bring your head up. For me, what works for me is bring your head up every 2 times. Now you've hacked it. You start hacking it slowly by slowly. That's called failing forward. You're persistent. You keep going.
You talk about thriving from failure. How do we do that?
I think the first thing is you need to cancel this success culture. You're allowed to basically, we are in a culture of high achievement and low morale. You're supposed to actually start by looking at your morale. Every time you fail, you learn how to manage your morale whenever you failed. You're supposed to feel bad when you fail. Everyone feels bad when they fail, right? Because others are winning. And then you go and start managing your morale. You're like, okay, listen, I've failed, but let's see if I can do this tomorrow. I'm not talking about psyching yourself positively. I'm talking about accepting the areas. And you're like, you know what? Let me get angry and find out why I'm failing. And maybe I'll figure out that you channel that energy. You're like, listen, let me figure out this thing. Like, if those guys can do it, why can't I do it? And that's not positivity. No. Positivity is that thing where you say, yeah, well, even if I don't know that stuff, I'm still a human being, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. That's not the same thing. In the other case, it's like the most naturally occurring source of energy. You're like, okay, listen, I'm going to go at it with these guys. Let me ask questions. Let me find out how did they do it. And by the way, when you're talking to them, they'll tell you, we were you once. You remind us of when we used to do that stuff and fail. But this is what you need to do. Adjust this, do this. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. You know, you guys know what I'm talking about.
I hope someone does not leave today's conversation saying that when I fail, I go reward myself with a cup of beer.
No, that's not going to work. Yeah, that's not
is that like rewarding failure?
No, that's
like you're literally saying
Like fail forward.
No, that's not failing forward. That's not failing forward. Because listen,
it's just rewarding your failure.
If we go back to the definition of failure is not failing to do the thing. No, that's fault. Failure is failing to achieve a certain outcome you wanted by several steps you've done and failing to do them right. So you keep faulting, and then the entire process is failure, right? So now, if you start fixing the small faults, that's failing forward. Eventually, you won't fault anymore. Think of it as that exercise. You know those exercises that they raffle, where they say we have maybe small pieces of paper. There are red ones and blue ones in a big jackpot. So we're going to turn it around. So there's equal number of red ones and equal number of blue ones. Now, every time you touch into the jackpot, the red ones are failure. The blue ones are success. Now, the more you fail, you know what you're doing? You're reducing on the number of times you'll fail.
And the number of papers inside there.
Exactly. Eventually,
Until you get to that.
if it's 50-50, right, and you keep failing, it will become now maybe 80-20. The chances of failing are less. Because now there's like 2 red papers in there left, and then there's like 12 blue ones. what are the chances of picking a red one?
You're eventually going to pick the
Blue ones.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're going to just be succeeding.
Yeah.
You're like, if you think about it that way, and I'm not telling you guys who are motivational speakers to go psyching people here to do things and die in the process.
Nasser, what makes you think they are psyching people?
I have a thing about motivational speakers. They're always, they don't tell you how to get to the thing. They just tell you that you can get to it. And then you go half cooked, half trained, half, you need to understand, I mentioned it earlier on, you have to be intentional. You have to be very careful. Whenever you fail, take note, figure out what it is. Is it caused by you? Is it caused by something else? Calibrate.
Listen, and this is the last question perhaps before we get into the news. You speak about a culture of failure. I didn't even know there's a culture of failure. But then you say the culture of failure can inspire success. I'd like you to talk about that.
Okay, so whereas a culture of success, which is what we live in these days, emphasizes winning, a culture of failure values growth and victory in its own right. Accepting mistakes is intrinsic and eventual to success. Like, think about it as a team, for example. If you work in a company with a culture of success, if you're janitors, as an example, you're all cleaning the school, but one person works harder than everyone else. They will only value the fact that the school is clean. That's a culture of success. But a culture of failure, they'll go ask questions. Guys, how does it feel to work here? And one of the janitors will say, I am the only one who is responsible for cleaning the entire thing. And then they'll try to balance out that work. So a culture of failure encourages learning. It encourages other people who are coming after you not to fall for the same thing. It's basically a knowledge-based culture. A culture of winning, they don't care how you did it, you just need to win. Step on everyone else and get to the top.
Nasser here speaking to us about failure and failing forward. Now, if you failed yesterday, okay, there's also anticipation. People are going to fail in the elections. It's a given. You are going to fail. Or you might even succeed. I'm not saying look out for failure, but just in case you fail.
Just have it on the back of your mind that it's going to happen.
Yeah, there's a possibility.
So if they fail, I would urge them to continue what they're doing. It's actually good work because they feel like they can make a difference in our communities. So you failed in the election, so what? You can keep going out there and being something more.
And engage.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that
Just
you're
don't
done
let your
and done.
dream die.
Yeah, and maybe we can see you in the next cycle. You might actually win in the next cycle. If you applied for that visa and they rejected you, please readjust your paperwork and go back a second time.
We saw it from the Prime Minister in the UK.
Yeah.
When he lost the elections, immediately he said, I look forward to serving you again in Parliament.
Yes.
As your member of parliament, I'm not
Yes.
giving up. It doesn't mean that I've lost my people. I still love you and I still have to
Yes,
serve.
but if you fail, don't go drinking that beer, guys, and don't go to social media. Chill
Rant.
social media. Don't become a motivational speaker. We have so many. We are tired.
It's a good morning here from Kigali in the morning.